right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Super Theory Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Martin, and with me, as always, is the other host, Chris Green.
What's up, man?
How's it going, dude?
Pretty good.
Good.
How about you?
Doing all right. You know, I. It's weird because there's not a lot of new releases coming out, and so trying to think of what's gonna hit with people right now. I'm trying to figure out uh, what would be great for you guys to hear and listen to during these times because so many things are getting pushed back right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, we have a bad habit, you and I, of as soon as, even like an inkling of a little bit of information comes out, you and I will text back and forth for a couple hours, and then we realize, oh, I should probably go on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And honestly, one of the biggest things that's been going on right now, at least in my head, is probably what's going on with Superman. What's going on with Henry Cavill?
Yes, which I will put it out there, the best Superman we've ever
Yes,
seen on screen is Henry Cavill.
I will second that 150,000%. So I guess we'll call today's episode Cav-El. Makes perfect sense. Um, you know, I watched Man of Steel again the other day, um, and it's I think it's so cool to be able to talk about it now with all the stuff that's going on because if you go back and like really watch Man of Steel and what Zach was trying to start with Man of Steel and looking at it from that perspective, from a world building perspective and everything, uh, I kind of think it's like a masterpiece, epic type thing.
Well, do you remember going into it? I think it was a year released after Dark Knight Rises. Do you remember going into Man of Steel thinking, oh, maybe this involves Christian Bale's Batman? Or do you remember just kind of going in there fresh, like, oh, this is a new Superman movie since I guess maybe was it '06 that the Brandon Ruth one came out? I think it was '06.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around that time because Iron Man was
Okay.
2008, and
Right. So I remember going into Man of Steel fresh. I didn't think it was connected to anything, and really to that, at that point we hadn't really been seeing any evidence from DC that they were doing any world building.
right,
It wasn't until maybe after Man of Steel that people started thinking of it, and I kind of remember it kind of getting mixed reviews due
yeah,
to a little bit of a darker nature.
yeah,
But I also think that people really romanticized the Christopher Reeves era Superman, being that it was kind of the original. Even though he wasn't the first to play Superman, they kind of romanticized, his very, um, I don't know, ultra good nature. Even the issues that he had that he was facing, he didn't really tackle real world issues in the way
right.
that I thought Henry Cavill did, and so maybe people thought it was too dark of a movie. But man, I thought it was as realistic a portrayal that we saw that I've seen as a Superman.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's also telling of our generation because of how expanded our world is versus when those Christopher Reeves movies came out. I mean, to me, those
Right.
Christopher Reeves movies, I mean, that was like Leave It to Beaver in a superhero. I mean, that was like
Oh, and
that
the
generation.
dorkiest,
Yeah,
the dorkiest fucking Clark Kent.
yeah,
Like, goddamn, get it together.
yeah,
You're fired from your job if you act like that.
yeah, 100%. And like, I mean, talking about that Leave It to Beaver generation, it was like no one, there weren't problems like there are today. You know what I mean? Or at least it wasn't on everyone's radar. And granted, being in this day and age, I need to acknowledge the fact that a, it was like a perfect white superhero man. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
It was about that type of family in that day and age. It was like the stereotype American life in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I'm speaking in that of terms of like like how Clark Kent grew up on a farm. There were more farms
Right.
back then. It was more
Oh, for
realistic.
sure. 100%. Yeah, I think it's I guess now that we're a little bit older, 35, I do understand the nostalgia as I kind of feel for the Michael Keaton Batman.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of time where I was like, this will never get topped,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of gave some pushback when Christian Bale showed up. I kind of kicked to the curb Val Kilmer and George Clooney, and I was standing on the nothing will be better than Michael Keaton hill.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had to kind of evolve my thinking, and I wish that kind of thinking would happen for the Christopher Reeves era Superman fans.
Yeah.
The character has to update itself as it did in multiple comics.
Yeah. 100%.
The first Superman we saw in the first comics, back in Action Comics, isn't the same Superman you see in today's comics, even if they take handpick some virtues here and there.
Listen, and I gotta say this. I don't know if I've already said it on this podcast before, but like, to all the comic artists out there, what are y'all trying to say with the underwear on the outside? Like,
Yeah. What is it?
No matter what it's supposed to be in the context of the story, like, it all unfortunately, a lot of the art, the suits look like fabric. You know what I mean? It doesn't
Yes.
look like it's bulletproof, even though it may say it's bulletproof. It looks like he's wearing a long sleeve T-shirt most of the time, a fitted long T-shirt.
Right.
Now, that is not all comic artists, obviously. One in particular, my favorite artist right now, for the most part, is Lee Bermejo, I think is how you say his name. And you can see a textured suit. You can see there's layers. You can see there's probably some padding, like, that added details in there. Granted, it's in a graphic novel style form, but like, again, talking about comics updating, I feel like we're at a point where it's like it needs to be at least believable that it's not a T-shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't need to see the 1950s style suit that is basically Lululemon fabric.
Yeah.
Even though my wife swears that's the best thing in the world.
Oh,
It
I'm
doesn't
sure it's
look
comfy.
plausible versus what we see in the Henry Cavill suit is incredible. Incredibly detailed. Yep. It looks more realistic, like it would perhaps stop a bullet, even though that's neither here nor there. But it just looks like a more realistic thing.
It's also based in the mythology that Zach is trying to create for this entire world, which we, a lot of us know now was like a 5-movie arc. But like, in Man of Steel, he was able to show his father, his past, his journey. When he goes back to the ship, the one that's encased in ice, and then meets his father's consciousness and all that, and he kind of shows him how the world was or how it was made and stuff. So you get this whole mythology and like this background of Krypton, in a condensed form, obviously, because it's all still in like the first act of the movie or whatever. But like, you learn so much, and it's done so well, and it's so condensed that like you have a reasoning for the suit. You have a reasoning for its texture. His dad's wearing it in battle. It's like it is what people wish Lululemon was, is like like a bulletproof armor type of thing that's just like skin tight but comfortable, or at least it appears that way. It's a movie suit, obviously. It's not really comfortable, but that's the appearance that it gives. That it's like second skin.
Well, not having the underwear on the outside is the best adaptation that can happen. People argue over the stylized S on the chest is different. That's going to come down to preference, but as far as the functioning suit that a superhero would potentially wear, having the underwear on the outside has never made sense.
No, never. And I've seen some people say that like, oh, it's made to break up the color of the suit and all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, design it in a non-underwear way.
Everyone.
Make some
grow
pinstripes. Yeah. Listen.
Yeah, we don't need to just break the color. Maybe we have a functioning thing happen for these superheroes.
It is always going to look like a diaper or underwear or whatever you want to call it.
Always.
there are
Yeah,
other ways to innovate that idea without just highlighting the underwear area. I mean, just straight up, that's what it is. It's a fucking tan
it's
line.
underwear.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's stupid, and it needs to be fixed forever.
So, do you think that you're now that we both established we both like Henry Cavill as our best Superman? Did you feel away initially after you first saw the movie, or has it been sort of now that we've had Batman versus Superman and the tragic Justice League that we saw? Do you have more fond feelings of Man of Steel due to those movies? Because I do personally.
I have more fondness for it now. Again, I said I watched it the other day. It's kind of grown on me as a film because when I first saw it, I was living in Chicago, and uh, obviously big Batman fan, huge Nolan fan, but like at that time for that movie to come out, it was that same feeling when I first saw Batman Begins, where it was like it was met. Luckily, it was Zach, and I say that with 100% confidence now because it's like he is a visionary director. Like he showed a vision of what it could be, and when I first saw it, I didn't understand it in that way, and I had the same shock and awe as when I saw Batman Begins. Of like, here is this reinvented origin story that makes more sense in our world now.
Yeah, and I don't like a polished superhero where I think where Zach succeeded is you basically have a someone who's not from Earth having to fit in with Earth kids. He
Mm-hmm.
has a dad who is trying to teach him Earth values, and most of those values front center are do not show the world who you are. They're not ready. So you stunt that non-Earthling development as far as powers go, and he's having to learn them as an adult when all of a sudden here's Zod ready to do battle, who his entire life is born for battle. You see
And that is,
Superman have to figure out how to fly, and I like that development for a character rather than all of a sudden, oh, he's had power since he was born, and he just slides right into him. Oh, look, he can fly perfectly the first time.
well, and to go back to Zod, first of all, Michael Shannon, holy shit. I mean,
Oh, so good.
so fucking good. But like, he is that character is telling you from the beginning, like this this Krypton, the way they describe it is like they have population control, and they also have population control in the form of like what profession will this baby that's going to be created uh, pursue and fulfill throughout his life. And Zod's was exactly what he told you in the movie. He's like, I'm here to. I forgot the exact wording. It's a good quote. Like,
I was bred to be a warrior,
that's
Cal.
it.
Trained my entire life to master my senses. Where did you train?
On
On
a
a farm.
farm.
Like the absolute disgust he has for Cal is you can feel it
Yeah.
because he's just incensed at the fact that he's even being challenged by somebody like that, not knowing that Cal, Superman has his powers due partly because of the Codex. He's got all of the people of Krypton inside of him.
Yeah. He also got to
So
learn
yeah,
by
I thought he did
himself.
a really good. Zod is an underappreciated villain,
Oh,
especially in Zack Snyder's in world.
dude, the way he says
Much
on a
better, no
farm.
disrespect to the original person who played Zod, but
No.
the difference in the characters, you had an arrogance in both, but you really felt the threat from Michael Shannon. I
Yeah.
felt like.
Man, the way he screams on a farm with like that, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
that anger and passion and emotion, is, I mean,
Yeah,
daunting.
because he looks at Clark or Cal as like a ant. Like,
Yeah,
how dare you challenge? This is what I'm born to be.
yeah.
How dare you?
And then spoiler alert at the end of Man of Steel when he kills Zod. I mean, Zod straight up tells him, "There's only one way this ends: either you die or I die." Like,
Yeah, he tells him to stop, and he says never.
yeah, he's not gonna take him into fucking custody. For everyone who's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Oh, Superman killed him," like the great thing about Cavill is he showed how much it destroyed him to have to do
right.
that. You know what I mean?
Yep, yep.
Like that his whole life growing up, with his dad, his dad's just telling him like he, you got to decide what kind of man you want to be.
Right.
And
If anything, it showed that after having to kill Zod, that was his absolute limit,
yeah,
and that he would try not to kill after that.
yeah, and take a life. I mean,
Exactly.
and
Well, I know that particularly after, so I guess it was 2000 and, was it 2000? Okay, so 2005, I guess, was Batman Begins. Then 8 is Dark Knight. Then 12 is Dark Knight Rises. So you're coming off of probably the seminal trilogy, at least at this point, of Batman, where Bale is looked at as kind of the best Batman, and then you've got this version of Man of Steel. People just, kind of disregard the Brandon Routh one, at least personally I do.
yeah.
You have people comparing Christopher Reeves to Henry Cavill. Do you think that was kind of the reason of the down performance, aside from how Zack Snyder decided to shoot the movie? Do you think just as an actor, I don't really know what Henry Cavill was in before that, but he wasn't, the most well-known person.
No, he was in this. I didn't see it, but I remember all the trailers for it. He was in this like medieval type movie.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It was a Greek fantasy movie.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he was much skinnier in it.
And yep,
The villain from Iron Man 2 was the villain in that as well.
Immortals. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
the Immortals.
Yeah,
I saw that movie. It was okay, and he did an okay job, but it wasn't super memorable just from him being an actor, in my opinion. So when he was cast, and then the performance afterwards, it's got, I think, a 55, mid-50s Rotten Tomato review. I think people were just kind of like, to it. And I remember coming away from it like, I'd like to see more. And it wasn't until, I think, the Comic-Con where they announced Batman vs. Superman, where then all of a sudden I was like, oh, shit, they're building a world.
right.
And I immediately began to appreciate Man of Steel more, because I knew that this was going to be the Superman I'm sticking with, get to like him.
Well, and
I remember
also,
literally thinking that I'm going to be stuck with the Superman, find things you like about it.
yeah.
Because I was one of the Batman fans that had a hatred towards Superman in general. I didn't like his thought process towards justice. I like Batman's more.
I was never really presented a version of Superman that I personally liked. And I know older people like Christopher Reeve, and some people like the Smallville guy, and some people are liking the Tyler Hoechlin guy on the CW or whatever. Again, I was the same way. I was a big Batman person. I never gave two thoughts to Superman half the time. He just wasn't in my wheelhouse.
Well, are you a physique guy as well? Does Superman need the muscles, or can you get away with a Christopher Reeves, Brandon Routh, kind of just slim fit look? Because I'm a physique guy for Superman. Like I appreciated Ben Affleck's physique for his version of Batman.
I think if you're going to have a character named Superman, he better look like a Superman.
Yes.
That's about as blunt as you can be with it, like if he's this one all be all, he needs to look like it,
Have you gone back and watched any of the original Christopher Reeves ones?
Man,
because,
I tried, and it's hard.
He is weak. He's weak looking.
Yeah, he is weak looking. He's got a good face.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Christopher Reeve as an actor, because he's he was like classically trained.
100%. This is just commentary on his Superman portrayal.
Yeah, and again,
but he does the stuff. Some people may listen to this and argue, well, the comics, Clark Kent also is a fucking dork, and it is what it is. And maybe he did portray that as comic book accurate as you could, but I really think it was a process of like, you remember how you felt when Jurassic Park came out and you were like, holy shit, those dinosaurs look real.
Yes.
I think that people saw a flight for the first time and they're like, oh, this looks really cool. Even if you go back and look and you're like, oh, look, his cape is held up by wires.
Right. Yeah, that's so funny. uh, I think the whole comics accurate thing is kind of off because comic books have been around since like God, what the '60s, '50s?
Oh, dude,
I
Action
mean,
Comics with Superman was like 1939.
there you go. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
'30s. So there have been like decades of comics. So when people say, "Well, it's not like the comics," it's like, well, which comic are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean that
Literally
argument is kind of
thousands.
over. You can't really,
Right.
which is a perfect, not to jump off of this and go to another movie, but like to talk about Jared Leto and Suicide Squad, like he had hits from like so many different versions of comics that like he was an homage or whatever to all the
Right.
Jokers. You know what I mean? He was
And guess
he was
what?
an
If
accomplishment,
he tried to pull off a Heath Ledger style Joker, he would have been criticized for that.
100%.
So you couldn't just do what we've seen. That's what is infuriating about fans in general, is, and you'll never make everyone happy. Is everyone has their own version of what it ought to be,
Yep.
and no one goes into these movies expecting to be surprised, or they're just dug into their opinion, which it is what it is. We are too at some level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's an homage to a lot of Jokers.
Right. And so, you know, to come back to Superman and again the fucking underwear thing will always bother me forever. But like, you know, comics have changed so much from 1939 to 2020. I think the whole comic book argument is dead.
Do you remember in the comic for Captain America where I think it was it was at least 2 years prior to Civil War coming out, or I'm sorry, not Civil War, Endgame coming out, and Captain America said "Hail Hydra" under his breath, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, this is the end of the world." Captain
Yep.
America would never.
Yep.
Then they were ended up able to put that moment into Endgame, and it made complete sense, and it made the story work. And you're like, "Oh shit, this is an awesome moment."
And it
Like
came straight from the comics, just in a different way,
exactly
which is exactly what.
evolving.
Oh,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's exact.
Evolving these worlds to where you're not, I don't know, having. There are no issues from 1939 that are currently happening today, except for very politically charged ones.
Mhm.
But you got to evolve these characters, otherwise it's just not going to make sense.
Right. And I think Henry Cavill as at least this generation's Superman, because again, like you said, when I first saw it, uh, I had the same feeling of like, well, this dude's obviously going to be around for a while. They hinted at LexCorp. They hinted at Bruce Wayne with the satellite, and that kind of got me into like, well, what's up with Christian Bale? Is there talks?
Yep.
Is he coming back? I mean, what the fuck, Which wasn't
Yep.
the case, but like it gave it gave it gave us it gave an outlook and a vision on what's to come. And
Well, and the fact that you're not, sold on the Tyler Hoechlin, is that how you say it?
yeah, I don't really know how
Uh,
to say his last
Guy,
name. Close
or
enough.
Brandon Ruth, or Tom Welling is to me a standing ovation or a round of applause for Henry Cavill's
Yes,
performance, because otherwise you would maybe like those other guys more.
right. And I will say, I think Brandon Routh was a great Christopher Reeves replacement. Not
Yeah, I do
in a
too.
great Superman. Although
Yeah,
his
I
Superman
don't like
Kingdom
that
Come
movie.
was cool as fuck.
Right. Yeah, I don't like his Superman Returns movie, but that's more based on who the director is and him
Yeah,
being a piece of shit.
yeah,
Um, his
and
his performance is fine. I mean, it is what it is for the moment. But yeah, I just think, and it may be more of a testament to, I think now the appreciation I have for Man of Steel and the world around it, and Zack Snyder's vision as a director for superhero movies, that may be tilting my world a little bit, or opinion a little bit more. But that's just where I'm at.
yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. Do you have you watched much of The Witcher?
No, I tried watching the first episode, and to be honest, I'm not a big like fantasy person like that. Uh,
Well,
yeah,
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think appreciate Henry Cavill as an all-around actor that I would go see him in anything. But what I do like is him as the character Superman, and I'll go see him the first day if they do Superman 2.
Oh, I'm taking the
So
day
I think
off
it's
for
more a
Justice
testament of
League.
that.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll stay home and I'll watch all 4 hours of that Justice League movie.
Right.
Because all it's gonna do is, again, call it a theory or a prediction, but I mean, getting to see Zack's Justice League is gonna be, I mean, it's gonna kick everybody off the way they should have been kicked off, 3 years ago, and
Yeah.
I mean kicked off in a good way, like launching them into their lane.
Yeah.
Um,
What is the hashtag? Pause, not stop.
Pause, not stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope, and I don't pray because I don't believe in God, honestly, but I hope and I urge the universe to make it so. And
Oh, same here.
I hope.
Yeah, I've watched maybe half an episode of The Witcher, and I'm kind of in the same boat. I just don't like the story
Hmm.
that much. I never got into the video games either.
Yeah, I never played
Um,
those.
but it's gotten good reviews, and mainly because of his portrayal in it. And
Right.
so I wonder if people are kind of warming up to him as an actor in general now that we've seen him in Mission Impossible and
Dude,
obviously
Mission
Superman.
Impossible was awesome. I loved
Oh
it.
yeah,
It
and
was
he
great.
was really good in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I wondered if it was because he's maybe evolved as an actor, or is it more of a testament to the writing style of The Witcher, so people like that character more, which happens to be a more brooding, stylized character than Superman has to be, but people have said he actually is a likable Witcher character versus you heard all the emo jokes from emo Superman, Batman versus Superman.
yeah.
But the Ultimate Edition fleshes out why he feels that way and why he couldn't stop the explosion. So
Yeah, and
I kind of dismiss those.
there's a huge trend going on right now. At least I've been reading on Twitter of a lot of people going back and watching because the Zack Snyder cut was coming out. People went back and watched like the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman, and I guarantee you, like most of the stuff I've read is like I can't believe I judged it this way, or you know what I mean? Like they just
Right.
it but that's kind of
They could
where
not be
Zack's at.
more different cuts.
Yeah. Oh, I
They are different movies. They are literally different movies.
I remember the way I felt, probably the same way a lot of older generations feel about where they were when JFK was shot. When I got to watch the Ultimate Edition and I saw what they cut out with, that lady from the village going and telling the senator that she was lying and that's, Superman did, it changes the entire, and I've probably talked about this before, but it changes the entire, like, scene and environment around the bombing scene. And what
The
was
fact that
supposed to happen.
the wheelchair was lined with lead,
Yeah,
that's an important detail because you don't go into the movie knowing every single intricacy of his powers and weaknesses.
right.
And the minute she mentioned lead, I was like, holy shit, like, that's right. He can't.
And by the way, I
And
mean, creating a new world involves letting people know strengths and weaknesses. And, like,
right.
you take out what makes Superman weak in Batman versus Superman. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, and again, that's not on Zach. That's on, executives or producers or whoever wanted that shit cut out. But, like, it changes the dynamic of the movie. And
Right.
again, for people who are not into like watching long movies, I get it. But if you can stand it, it goes by pretty fast, and it also paces out Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. I know a lot of people complained about the fact that in Batman vs Superman and the theatrical cut, people were like, "Oh, he's trying too much to be like Heath Ledger. He's like doing all these little weird movements and da da da." And if you watch the Ultimate Edition, it paces it out so much better where it's like he doesn't come off as like manic. He's more thoughtful and he knows what he's doing. Like everything's in play. And
he literally convinced two superheroes, one who is now disillusioned, but partly because Lex put a plan forth, and another who is a white knight, shining armor Superman, to literally fight each other because of his plan.
He kidnapped
this
the dude's
isn't just a
mom,
crazy chaos plan.
Pushed Lois Lane off a building while in the middle of kidnapping his mom. Like,
yeah, diabolical.
The most powerful person on Earth at that point in time, and this dude's kidnapping and attempted murdering, even though he knew Superman would come get her. Like the two people he's closest to in the world. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, if he was manic and crazy, he would have just destroyed the Kryptonian ship because he hated everything about Superman.
right.
Instead, he developed a plan to create Doomsday and also learn everything he could from Steppenwolf. The
Yep.
correct version of Steppenwolf, I may add.
He figured out how to break into an alien ship by cutting off the fingerprints of a dead alien.
Right. And
I
then put him
mean,
into this. I
and
would have
convinced
just
the
thought that
government
was,
to let him do that
yeah. And then put a Jolly Rancher
in the
in that
dude's
guy's
mouth.
mouth.
When you could you imagine Elon Musk trying to put a fucking Jolly Rancher in like Mitch McConnell's mouth or something like that?
That's some Elon Musk shit.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's just uh, that's how smart this guy is. So, and again, we're getting off Cavill, but like this is his nemesis now. And I will
if we move, well, do you think that's like, is he the seminal Luthor to you now? I mean,
listen.
It sucks that we've only seen him in one performance. And we've seen Cavill now technically in 3.
Yeah.
4 if you count the headless version of him in Shazam.
Yeah.
But we've only seen, Lex or this version of Lex in one movie.
Well,
Gene
technically too,
Hackman
he was in the
really
end
stole
credit.
the show in the originals.
He was in the end credit in Justice League, but I don't count that as a movie.
Oh, that's true.
But man, like you, I dislike people involved with Superman Returns. Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey both turned out to be giant pieces of shit. Right. With that said, and separating the art from the artist, Kevin Spacey was a badass Lex Luthor.
Better than Gene Hackman.
Yes, I would say so. But that is also generational, I'm sure.
Well, do you think Gene Hackman, so legend actor, I'm told.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of movies that, he's the coach in Hoosiers, and that Hoosiers team is trash.
Enemy of the State with Will Smith.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah. He's in a lot of movies, obviously not in so much now, but he kind of stole the show in the way that I think people looked at the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton, because obviously Jack Nicholson was a star.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe if that character hadn't died at the end, and maybe Jack Nicholson continued on, maybe we would be looking at those early Batman movies similar to how the early Christopher Reeves ones were, where it was like, oh, this is like the seminal version of the villain. I kind of got burnt out watching Gene Hackman play that character. It just all kind of felt like, oh, here we go.
He was. He is a good, great, wonderful actor.
Right.
Kevin Spacey.
It wasn't menacing to me.
No, but Kevin
it was
Spacey
like,
has
let's
meanness.
cut a deal.
You know what I mean? Like
Kevin Spacey had absolute hatred. Gene Hackman was just kind of like, ooh, let's cut some deals with some people, and I don't know. It just, and Jesse Eisenberg, you feel the hatred he has towards,
especially
Superman.
At the end.
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, so I like Jesse, but I will reserve it because, Kevin Spacey's a piece of shit human.
Yeah.
But his version is what I look at, because we haven't even technically seen Jesse Eisenberg play the role. Technically, he's playing
he hasn't
the
been fully
Luthor's
fleshed out.
son. Right. We haven't seen a fleshed out version.
Yeah, and
if Batman
that about?
Begins was a one-off, we wouldn't be talking about Christian Bale the way that we are.
Right.
If it was just Batman Begins and that was it, we wouldn't be saying the same thing.
So that is an interesting question honestly, that should be a question that should be submitted through fandom to Zack Snyder. Is where is Lex Luthor's dad? Where's the real Lex? Because he even admits it. You know what I mean? So, did his dad really go away? Did he kill his father? You know?
Yeah, that's what I kind of wondered.
He talks about his abominations that he, you know what I mean? He talks about the shit that his dad did to him, and then his dad went away. I would love to know some answers to that.
Yeah, and some of the decisions that Zack made that people like or dislike, along with killing that version of Robin, are absolute foot in the ground, all right, where do we go from here moments where you can't really backtrack. Because it's not as if we're going to find, this version of Luther's dad alive somewhere, unless they do something weird.
Right.
So once you make that decision, you really are going to have to ride with that character. And the way they set it up, using that young of a Luther, is that's Luther for the next 30 years.
Yep. Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's
it's a young
your
guy.
next Superman for the 30 years. So you got to have a plan for him, and I think there was and there is.
Yeah. No, I agree. Uh, I mean, you're giving us Superman for the next like 10 years. You've given us his nemesis for the next possible 10 years.
Well, I think there's been a lot of comparison just from who the characters are for Marvel and DC as far as their roles within the universes that they're created. By that I mean, Superman being the seminal character, the godlike character for the DC universe. Iron Man sort of was that way for Marvel, and while he did get 3 movies of his own, um, he was kind of the guy in and out, kind of the connecting tissue piece. And I don't know if that's the plan for Henry, but I was going to ask, they had that little cameo that wasn't technically him, but he was at the end of Shazam. Is that the kind of role you see for him? Because while everyone wants a Superman 2 movie, that kind of seems to be on the back burner for DC.
Yeah,
So what would you like for him to be, or to
I mean,
to go from here?
I'd like for him to get at least one more solo movie and a couple of ensemble films with others. But and again, I know me and you have talked about this in our regular discussions off of the microphone. I don't know if we've talked about it on here, but like, the Rock is playing Black Adam, and his ex-wife is his manager as well as Henry Cavill's manager. And
Right.
so, if you don't think The Rock has some stock in Cavill sticking around, you're crazy.
Oh, 100%.
And
The worst thing in the world would be to see a recast Superman go on through this universe.
Yeah, and I think with everything that's happened now with the Snyder Cut and everything else that's coming, like DC fandom and all that, like they're obviously paying attention and getting the point that we liked the actors we had originally, including Ben, and we'd like him to stick around. Cavill especially. I mean, he's going to be a big part of Justice League, obviously, because he's dead. And I know Cyborg is like the heart of the story, but like, it's about Superman coming back too in a lot of ways. And I think when he finally gets his real moment under the person who cast him as Superman, Zack Snyder, he knows what he wants to do with Superman. He knows how he wants to show Superman and what this Superman is and can be.
So does that mean you put him in, like, so we'll get the Snyder Cut. Obviously, that's where we'll see him next.
Yep.
Does that mean we know he won't be in Wonder Woman 84. We know he won't be in Aquaman. The next movie coming around, I think, is Shazam.
I think he'll show up in Shazam too. I think he'll show up.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. They'll get him in Shazam
but not,
too.
Not Flashpoint?
He might be. I don't know. I feel it sounds like they're gonna stick more of the Batman route than anything. If he did show up, it might be in a cool way where they actually use CGI correctly and like slim him down to make him like the weird Flashpoint universe Superman.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would. And but I think Zack's probably gonna get Justice League too. I think it'll probably change with things that have happened, but he'll still make it his own. I think Superman will come back then. I feel like if Snyder Cut does what it's supposed to, Zack's probably going to get his way in a lot of ways, and he'll probably get to make Man of Steel 2. I think
so. If there is a Man of Steel 2, and it's after those movies, who do you want as the villain? Does he need a movie head-to-head solo with Lex Luthor?
Or it depends on where
kind of a tired trope?
It depends on where Lex Luthor's at, and what his actual... what happens to him after Snyder Cut, because there's a lot more to him than what was in the fake movie.
Well, we at least know I guess, that was at the end of Justice League, so...
I know he's going to show up again. I think in a Man of Steel 2, I think the villain probably comes a little bit organically. maybe because Metallo was tried for in the first one and things got changed, maybe they go back and try to retell that story the way you wanted to, but updating it for a sequel instead of the original. Or I feel like if Darkseid is the main bad guy in this world, like a Thanos figure, then you gotta have Superman stick around for that, for sure.
Well, so when Lex says the bells have been rung, you can't unring them, he's referring solely to Darkseid, in your opinion. He's not mentioning Brainiac because he has the moment on the ship with Steppenwolf. He must only be meaning Darkseid. So I think it would be a mistake if they went ahead and said, let's do Man of Steel 2 and Brainiac's the villain.
Yeah.
I think you're jumping the shark too
Brainiac's
soon.
such a top tier guy and a really formidable force that he needs to be on the same level as like probably Darkseid or Steppenwolf and at least have some build up. You know what I mean?
Okay.
As you know, I don't really know what would be. Here's the thing about Superman coming back through the Snyder Cut. In Batman vs. Superman, he dies, and so does Clark Kent. Clark Kent dies. Right. Clark Kent in Batman vs. Superman, in his coffin on his farm, is wearing a suit coat over his Superman suit. So that means probably most of the people at that place knew he was Superman, which means the priest knew, Perry White found out, Ginny found out, everyone that was in there because the casket was open. And you can, if you go back and watch BVS, you can see his suit, his super suit under his little sport coat or whatever. I mean, it's right there. It's not hiding. So there's a lot more people that know who Clark Kent is now.
Also, they announced Clark Kent dead.
Exactly. That's what I was getting to. They printed it in the paper. One of their own employees is dead. So if Superman comes back, he's going to be a full-time Superman. He's not going to go get a job somewhere else as Clark Kent again. He'll be known.
Did they announce he was dead or missing in the woods?
No, they said it was an obituary in the paper.
Okay.
It said they lost one of their own. So, when Superman comes back, there's no going back. He'll still be called Clark by Lois, and his mom. But to the entire rest of the world, he's going to be Superman.
Which is good to me because that worse than underwear over a suit is let me just put on the glasses. I'm a completely different person.
Oh, also Superman trying to hold a job. Like,
right?
Come on.
Come on.
He's got one job, and that's to be Superman.
Right.
Although I'm sure he might become like a novelist. Maybe he'll become a writer if he really does like journalism for whatever reason, and not just to kind of like snoop around.
Yeah, I think he just likes that because Lois likes it.
Yeah.
You know how it is dating somebody.
And he's close to her.
Right. I think he likes that because she likes it.
Yeah, I could see that.
So yeah, man. I would hope Snyder Cut. You think they'll make a joke about his mustache in the new Snyder Cut? You think they'll fit something in?
If they do, it's gonna be the smartest joke in the world. I feel like Zack's not the kind of guy who would go for that type of hit.
Okay.
Just like he doesn't have Booyah for Cyborg to say in his script, I'm sure that's probably something he would rather stay away from. If anything, it would be a real slight joke to like corporate executives, not to a mustache.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, like I said, we've talked about it before, but I hope it's a full movie. I hope it's not 6 episodes.
I do too, and I bet we get that answer.
Yeah, the teaser style, you're not getting any more fans than you already are fixing to get by trying to give a teaser at the end of every week. Like, we're here to watch it.
Yeah, we're all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if for some reason you say we're fixing to release this, but you got to buy a 2-month subscription for HBO Max, people are going to do that. You don't have to trick us into staying.
Yeah, and just from Zack's like previous work, like Extended Watchmen, Extended Sucker Punch, 300. He's an epic type of person. He tells like an epic tale. So I feel like it would be a disservice to him to break it down And if he's already mentioned over the past few days on social media that this is no compromise. He's not making any compromises. He gets to do exactly what he wants, and I think exactly what he wants is probably a really long movie.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. And what I'm really excited for is not only just the new scenes that we're going to see, but absolute different dialogue that we're going to see.
It's just
I doubt that Zack Snyder said, "All right, Superman, now that you recognize only Batman, I want you to pick him up by his neck, which would separate from his fucking spinal cord, by the way,
yep.
and then ask him if he bleeds." I don't think Zack Snyder did that.
And throw him on the ground and then let him be like hurt, but then also awkward smile and like it's just
and then tell Ben Affleck to say everything's bleeding or whatever.
Those are the most forced emotions and lines.
Oh my god, it's so
for Batman to ever say. You know, I mean, that's George Clooney shit.
That and saying, I don't not like you. Like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Cringe at the end of the movie.
Dude. Ugh.
Such trash.
Yeah. We're literally in the style of a multiverse, we're literally getting like an alternate timeline.
We're literally, yeah, exactly.
It's getting fixed. It's like literally getting fixed. It's so funny. Someone's putting back the DC Infinity Stone.
No kidding.
Well, shit, man.
All right, yeah. Is that everything?
I think so. I think that's all for today. Pretty low key pod.
Yeah, I think we've covered just about everything. Yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah, man. Well, next week we'll try to get one in. I'm going out of town that next weekend. We'll see what pops up. We've got some other ideas we could talk about if nothing big comes. But yeah, we'll look forward to getting something to you guys out next week. And we appreciate you if you're listening now or listening later.
Yep, thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
It's not who I am underneath, but what I do defines me.